What if I told you the Roman Empire, the so-called eternal empire, master of the known world, once suffered a defeat so catastrophic, so humiliating that they tried to erase it from history altogether? A disaster so complete that 3 whole legions, tens of thousands of Rome's finest soldiers, vanished in just 3 days. It happened far from the marble streets of Rome, in a mist-shrouded forest, where the empire's dreams of expansion came to die. And the most shocking part, the emperors didn't just lose the battle, they buried the truth. Today, we're digging it back up. When we think of the Roman Empire, we imagine marble temples gleaming in the sun, victorious generals parading through the streets, and disciplined legions marching in perfect formation. We think of an unstoppable machine that rolled over enemies and brought Roman order to every land it touched. But behind that polished image was a careful curation of history. Victories trumpeted to the heavens, defeats swept quietly under the rug. Our question today is simple, but the answer is anything but. What was the Roman Empire's biggest secret, and why did they try so hard to hide it? To uncover it, we'll travel back to the early years of the empire, to the reign of Augustus, the man who claimed to have brought peace to the world. We'll witness a colossal military disaster, the propaganda machine that covered it up, and the astonishing rediscovery of the truth nearly 2,000 years later. And as we peel back the layers, we'll see that this isn't just about Rome. It's about the power to control history itself. In the autumn of 9 CE, Publius Quinctilius Varus, a governor and military commander, was marching 3 full Roman legions through the dense, twisting trails of what the Romans called Germania. His orders to bring Roman law, order, and taxation to the restless tribes east of the Rhine. Among his trusted allies was Arminius, a Germanic noble who had served in the Roman army, spoke flawless Latin, and had been granted Roman citizenship. Varus believed him loyal. He could not have been more wrong. Arminius was playing a long game. He had quietly forged alliances among the Germanic tribes, uniting them with a single goal: drive Rome out of their lands forever. And to do that, he lured Varus deep into hostile territory with reports of a tribal rebellion. The trap snapped shut in the Teutoburg Forest. For 3 days, the legions were harried without rest. Heavy rains turned roads into quagmires, making Roman shields slippery and their bows useless. The tight, disciplined formations that had conquered the Mediterranean were useless here, in the narrow trails between looming trees. By the end, the Roman army was annihilated. Varus fell on his own sword rather than face capture. The legionary standards, the golden eagles, sacred symbols of Roman honor, were taken by the enemy. When news reached Emperor Augustus, the great ruler who had reshaped Rome into an empire was shattered. Ancient sources tell us he tore at his clothes and cried out, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions." But grief alone wasn't enough. Augustus knew the truth of this disaster could shake Rome's power to its core. The Roman Empire did not thrive for centuries by broadcasting its failures. Rome's power was built on more than military might. It was also built on belief. Belief that Rome was destined to win, always, and that to resist Rome was to invite inevitable defeat. So when Augustus learned the full scale of the Teutoburg disaster, he didn't turn it into a cautionary tale for the public. He buried it. Official inscriptions, silent. Triumphal monuments, non-existent. Coins bearing the memory of victory over Germania. They were never minted. The loss of 3 legions was never celebrated, never ritually mourned in public. This wasn't unprecedented. Rome had a practice called damnatio memoria, the erasure of a disgraced figure from the public record. The same principle could be applied to events. If something threatened the empire's prestige, it could simply be forgotten by controlling what was recorded and what wasn't. Augustus ensured that the people of Rome and the empire's far-flung subjects would not see this defeat as a sign of weakness. The loss was spoken of only in whispers and private writings. For the official record, the story was silence. This was more than just saving face. The Roman Empire's hold over its territories depended on the perception that its victories were inevitable. To admit that a coalition of barbarians had obliterated Rome's finest troops was to admit that resistance might succeed. That was dangerous. Client kings who ruled under Roman protection might reconsider their loyalty. Rebellions could break out in provinces already restless under imperial taxes and laws. Even Rome's own soldiers could lose faith in the empire's destiny. The psychological effect of Teutoburg was potentially more devastating than the loss itself. The Rhine frontier, once seen as the gateway to further conquest, now became a hard limit. The dream of pushing Rome's borders to the Elbe River faded. Germania would remain beyond the empire's permanent reach. By keeping the disaster out of the public consciousness, Augustus preserved the illusion of Roman invincibility. The people saw an unbroken chain of victories. The cracks were carefully hidden, and for centuries, this illusion held. For nearly 2 millennia, the Teutoburg disaster was a shadow in the historical record. Ancient writers like Tacitus and Cassius Dio recorded parts of it, but their accounts were vague and sometimes contradictory. The actual location of the battlefield was lost. Then, in the late 20th century, a remarkable discovery changed everything. In the 1980s, a British officer stationed in Germany, Major Tony Clun, began exploring fields near the village of Kalkries with a metal detector. He uncovered Roman coins bearing the stamp of Augustus and fragments of weapons from the early 1st century CE. Archaeologists swarmed the site, and the ground began to yield its secrets: human bones, with signs of violent death, twisted fragments of armor, horse remains, and evidence of makeshift fortifications built by the Germanic warriors. The pattern of the finds revealed a long, narrow killing ground, perfect for an ambush. The battlefield had been found. Nearly 2,000 years after Rome tried to erase it, the truth was written in the soil. The Teutoburg disaster, and Rome's effort to conceal it, tells us something profound about the nature of power. History is not just what happened. It is what those in power choose to remember. This was not a defeat on some distant, unimportant frontier. It was a turning point. Rome's expansion into Germania halted. The empire would never again attempt such a deep push beyond the Rhine. By suppressing the story, Augustus protected Rome's prestige. But he also deprived later generations of the full truth. The lesson here is not just about Roman history, but about all history. We inherit stories that have been shaped, edited, and sometimes silenced. The stones of Rome tell tales of triumph. The forests of Germany whisper the tales Rome would not carve into marble. So, the Roman Empire's biggest secret wasn't simply the loss of 3 legions. It was the erasure of that loss from the empire's self-portrait. Rome understood that its true strength was not just in legions and fortresses, but in the story it told about itself, an unbroken march toward destiny. Teutoburg cracked that story, so they sealed the crack and hoped no one would ever look closely enough to find it. 2,000 years later, we have. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden chapter of Roman history, like the video, subscribe to Empire Remembered, and tap the notification bell so you never miss another ancient secret. And tell me in the comments, was this truly Rome's biggest secret? Or do you think there's another they tried even harder to hide?